This is unprecedented. I've never seen the lake drop like this in the summer.
We had really a double-edged sword coming at us. Low snowfall in the especially latter half of the winter, and a record dry May and June.
It's always been, run and jump into the water.
Yeah.
That's the first introduction to Flathead Lake.
We have noticed just a little bit slower boat traffic, and just tourism in general, I feel like, is just a little slower this year.
There is not a reservoir in the west right now that is able to be at full pool. Not a single one.
The MTN crew is in Polson today for a special newscast on the shores of Flathead Lake,
which, as we've been reporting, is experiencing historic low water levels some say they haven't seen in years.
Hello there, I'm Jill Valley.
And I'm Louis Storch. Thank you for joining us tonight. The lake looks a little different this year, Jill.
It does. It is because it is more than a foot below its normal pool for the month of July. So tonight we're going to find out why the lake is seeing such low water levels.
And how everyone from the governor to Montana's congressional delegation is reacting.
One group that is reacting, those who own cabins along Flathead Lake, because the lower water levels are impacting how they access the water, especially when it comes to their boats. I spoke with one property owner who explains the challenges she's facing this summer. Rosemary Thurston and her family are like other Flathead Lake cabin owners. Their boat sits just inches from the water, and that's where it's going to stay.
Because at this point even, we can't get it out, and if it gets lower, it's going to even be worse.
In your experience, have you seen this ever happen before?
No, not ever.
The Thurstons have had this property near Yellow Bay since the 1940s and will still find a way to have fun on the lake in the short window Montana allows for summer fun. But for many, summer fun now looks like this. Efforts to get a boat off the lake bed, sky-high docks, and sailboats on trailers. If water levels continue to shrink, property owners are facing some major expenses to adjust.
Well, if this is going to be the new normal, we certainly would have to make our tracks longer to get the boat out, and the dock would be way too high, so you certainly would have to rethink about, the level of your dock. I mean, it involves a lot of cost to do all those things.
Where we're standing now should be underwater.
It should be underwater.
The water normally covers that top rung. Instead, there's a newly exposed rocky beach where swimmers need to be aware of exposed rocks. This is something happening all along the shores of this massive lake, and it's leaving cabin owners wondering, what's next? Are people kind of tense about it?
Well, I think, we can all adjust for this summer, but if it's long term, it's certainly going to be an issue for everybody. I mean, all the way around the lake. Really brings climate change to the forefront, reality.
Now, we've set the scene, and that's what homeowners are seeing on the properties this summer. But the water isn't just low on the lake, it's low on the dam that feeds Flathead Lake, which is owned by the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. Now, the water from SKQ Dam flows down the Flathead River southwest of Polson into the lake. But the output is low this year, very low. That's why MTN's Andy Mepham met with the CEO of the company that manages the dam. He wanted to hear firsthand how we got here.
Right where I'm standing, water from the Flathead River used to flow, but this summer water levels are at record lows, and some experts have told me that this is a new tipping point of ever decreasing water levels in the Flathead River Basin.
And we go to near 90 degrees for a couple weeks right at the beginning of May. All the snow that we did have melted immediately. And so we had extremely high water supply last year, extremely low water supply this year. So climatologists are telling us as the earth as we warm, we're going to see more volatility in the cycles.
Then how do you expect that it will affect the local communities that rely on Flathead Lake?
So need to expect something different going forward. There is not a reservoir in the west right now that is able to be at full pool. Not a single one.
That's Brian Lipscomb, CEO of the Energy Keepers, a tribally owned corporation of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes tasked with managing the SKQ hydroelectric project southwest of Polson. Since 2015, the Energy Keepers have documented some of the wettest and driest years on record for Flathead Lake, but limited snowpack this year made a new model for water collection a necessity.
So normally we go to minimum pool, as I said, on April 15th. Instead, this year we stopped, and in first week of March, we started refilling the lake, a full 6 weeks early.
Doing so allowed the water to be less than a foot below full pool and bring the facility to a minimum flow for continued operation. But Lipscomb says that climatologists have advised him that the decreasing water levels are the result of abnormal weather patterns.
Abnormal, not normal. Very few records show 3 years in a row of La Nina. Then we come out of that and we're going into an El Nino, which is currently forecasted and is playing out in some parts of the country, here drought-wise, other places heat-wise, as the hottest El Nino and driest El Nino on record. Driven by the ocean temperatures, they're seeing ocean temperatures now that are higher than any that they have ever measured. So we're just seeing the beginning of these cycles.
According to Lipscomb, water levels along the Flathead River Basin are going to level out sometime here in the next couple of weeks. At the SKQ Dam, Andy Mepham, MTN News.
So just a quick reminder of what El Nino is. It's above average water temperatures in the Pacific west coast of South America. Now, what that means for us, on average, generally in Montana here, is above average winter temperatures and below average winter precipitation.
As you can imagine, the low water levels have grabbed a lot of people's attention, and that includes Montana Governor Greg Gianforte and Montana's congressional delegation. And one of their ideas was to divert water from Hungry Horse Reservoir into Flathead Lake. That's why today the governor submitted a systems operational request to the Columbia River Technical Management Team. They handle recommendations for dam and reservoir operations. Although Gianforte is not a member of that team, he submitted this request so they can use all available data and criteria to release water from Hungry Horse. He then asked that the team act without delay to address drought conditions in the Flathead Valley and Flathead Lake's low water levels. Later, we will show you how releasing water from Hungry Horse would work. Of course, there are some economic impacts to Flathead Lake being lower this year. Outfitters, restaurants, and many others rely on this lake for income. MTN's Emily Brown was wondering how the economy is faring, and that is why she went to Big Fork.
We probably have 60 boats a day come in.
A popular spot on the lake, Saddlehorn Marina sits on the shore of Woods Bay. Traffic on the lake and boat rentals help keep the restaurant busy.
Definitely lucky having, 40 feet off the end of the dock here.
But Ryder Trent, who helps run the rental business with his father, says the low water levels around the lake are changing things.
We have noticed just a little bit slower boat traffic, and just tourism in general, I feel like, is just a little slower this year.
Saddlehorn also owns a marina close by. The water level is way lower on that side of the bridge, which is making owners pull their boats out of the lake.
Over half the boats got pulled out back there. We've actually winterized a couple already, just 'cause people are like, it's not worth it.
Todd Noble, owner of Flathead Lake Charters, launches his fishing tours from the Shallowback Marina.
We're still getting guests out on the lake.
Noble's boats are almost touching the ground. The rocks on the lake floor rubbing on the boats could cause serious damage.
The other concern we have, of course, is being able to get out of the marina through the very narrow and shallow channel that we have to navigate to get out onto the lake.
If the water levels drop any more, then doing business gets harder. Pulling boats out to find other places on the lake with higher water.
We're going to have to launch 2 boats every day and then pull them back out in the afternoon or evening, and it's just going to add an immense amount of time to our schedule.
Noble says that in the 10 years he's worked at Flathead Lake Charters, he's never experienced anything like this and wants to know why it's happening.
Frustration more than anything, because we're not getting the answers that we want from the entities involved.
He also wants to know the plan for the future, not only for his business, but for everyone working around Flathead Lake. In Big Fork, Emily Brown, MTN News.
Earlier today, we were talking with the Polson Boat Company. They say they are busier than ever. In fact, as we've been here, we have seen several boats launch from this site. What about the public boat launches? Are any of them closed? Well, we checked with Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks, and they tell us All FWP ramps are still usable and they're open. There might be some docks affected by the low lake levels, and officials are urging boaters to use extreme caution. Check those water levels before launching your boat because you don't want to damage your hull. And if you need more information about where to go, visit FWP's website.
This is just the start of our coverage from Flathead Lake. Here's what's next.
The potatoes are not going to be able to finish if we can't get water.
It's not just homeowners and marinas impacted, but farmers too. Hear from them next on KPAX.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching the MTN 530 News.
Welcome back to our broadcast from Flathead Lake. The low water levels aren't just affecting businesses and homeowners, but also farmers in Flathead County.
Yeah, MTN's Sean Wells recently met with a group of farmers who depend on water from the Flathead River to continuously fill a slough that's used to irrigate crops. Now, due to low water levels in the river, the slough has reached a diversion point and can no longer intake water.
Now, we have 6 more weeks of irrigation, so the farmers are worried they could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of crops as that slough starts to run dry.
You know, this is real world stuff here.
As the water runs low, the slough begins to dry.
We pump out of a slough that is charged by Flathead River. And right now, the intake for this slough is below the level of the river. So we're not getting any water. And we've probably got a few irrigations left, and we will be out of water here.
Steve Strike grows seed potatoes in the lower valley east of Kalispell along the Flathead River. His family has farmed in the valley since the mid-70s. He's never seen the water drop this low.
Never. In all the years we've been out here, some of the guys been out here longer than me. They were saying since the 50s, never seen anything like it. Yeah, we've got about 6 weeks left of irrigation too, so we need water.
Steve says he will lose all of his crops when the slough runs dry.
Hundreds of thousands just on this one field right here, but there's many fields in this area that are affected.
Mark Passmore farms canola, rotating different crops year to year. He says the farmers had no warning that the river was going to drop this low.
I heard about it last week when the lake was already down 6 inches and they said going to be down 20 inches in July. It's already to a level that it isn't going to work here.
He's worried sick he might lose everything.
It's really scary. It's going to be hard on the farm.
Charles Jaquette farms small grains and leases out acreage to other farmers. He says the slough provides roughly 5,000 gallons of water per minute, helping irrigate close to 3,000 acres of crops.
And we can't wait 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks down the road. It'll be all over by then.
He says the slough is running out of water fast.
We're looking at a week and a half, 2 weeks, maybe. We don't know yet.
The farmers are asking those in charge of the Hungry Horse Reservoir to release more water into the Flathead River before it's too late.
There is no other way than raising the river level. We don't have a way to pump it into that slough. We don't have any other options.
Please give us some help, just as soon as possible. I mean, we need some water.
In Kalispell, Sean Wells, MTN News.
But because both Hungry Horse and SKQ dams are low this year, we wanted to find out why we're at this point. Well, for more information and to find out what's really going on, I went to the experts, the meteorologists at the National Weather Service in Missoula.
We had really a double-edged sword coming at us with low snowfall in the especially latter half of the winter and a record dry May and June in that same basin.
It wasn't the coldest winter and it also wasn't the wettest. However, like National Weather Service meteorologist Corby Dickerson explained to me, it may have felt like the longest. With the first snow falling last year in the beginning of November and not leaving till mid-March, it may come as a surprise to many that for many locations, especially in northwest Montana, snow is well below normal.
About the end of December, it just stopped, at least in northwest Montana. We continued to get some snow, especially in March here in the west central part of the state and southwest part of the state, and continued to get good moisture through March and April. But northwest Montana relatively remained in the doldrums.
So that was one factor. The other factor was after a wet May, June quickly dried out. Again, primarily northwest Montana, leading to some record dry conditions in that part of the state.
So West Glacier had its 5th driest May through June period. Creston had its 6th driest May through June on record. Hungry Horse had its 7th driest May through June on record. And Kalispell, despite a normal May, had its 10th driest June on record.
The National Weather Service has sensors in the mountains across western Montana. Corby showed me one sensor in Glacier National Park, a basin that feeds into the Flathead River, then Flathead Lake.
Basically, this is Flat Top Mountain, and you can see how we ended up in the yellow, pretty much stayed in the yellow all the way through the year. And so we were on the lower third of quote-unquote normal, and this shows that this year was actually the earliest full meltout of this high elevation snowtail site. So we were 21 days ahead of 3 weeks ahead of schedule.
Put all these factors together and it becomes clear why Flathead Lake is so low this year. We're back after this break with your full forecast from the shores of Flathead Lake.
Storm Tracker weather starts now with meteorologist Louis Dortch.
Well, good evening, everyone. What a beautiful day here in over Flathead Lake in Polson. I tell you what, it's been just a beautiful sunshine, clouds at times, temperatures in the 80s, not bad at all. Now, we're going to be talking about our weather here. We're going to be seeing some hot temperatures move in for the weekend, so let's jump right into those details. Before we do, I'm going to be talking about some iCams from earlier today. A lot of times I show the Polson iCam. We don't need to do that because you just saw it behind me. This is Missoula from earlier today as well. And then as we take a look at TV Mountain here, we'll be looking at TV Mountain. Not a bad day as well up there in the mountains with the sunshine, clouds at times as well. So what I'm going to do here is kind of run through the forecast for today because we do have a chance of some thunderstorms out there. Notice anywhere in the light green, there is that chance for an isolated storm this evening. Most of us stay dry, but there will be at least a chance for an isolated storm as we kind of move throughout the evening. Hey, I'm at Flathead Lake. Let's do a lake forecast right now. Here's a look at Flathead Lake from for tomorrow, all right? You're gonna see temperatures in the 80s, pushing 90 in some spots, sunny skies. It's gonna be really nice there at Flathead Lake. Let's take a look at Seeley Lake. Sunshine, 80s tomorrow as well, should be pretty good. And then let's fly on south as we get down to Lake Como. Not a bad day tomorrow as well. Like I mentioned, temperatures even hotter by the weekend. I'll show you that here in just a minute. All right, for tonight, our lows, 50s, 60s out there across western Montana. We're gonna see partly cloudy skies overhead. For tomorrow, our high temperatures, we'll be topping out a lot of 80s out there, all right? We could be even pushing some 90s in a few spots as well. But we'll be seeing the hottest temperatures by the weekend. 7-day for Missoula, look how we start to heat it up out there, right? 98 on Sunday. Kalispell, temperatures heat up as well. We're going temperatures well into the 90s for our weekend. And one other one here, Hamilton, 86 Friday, 90 Saturday, 95 on Sunday.
Louis, that forecast makes this lake look even more tempting. If I wasn't on the clock, I might take a dip. We're going to be right back, though, and this time we're going to talk about what Montana leaders in some of the nation's highest offices have to say.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching the MTN 530 News.
Throughout this newscast, we've mentioned a solution many state leaders seem to support, and that's releasing water from Hungry Horse Reservoir into Flathead Lake. Just so you can visualize this, here's a map of Flathead Lake, the Flathead River, and Hungry Horse Dam and Reservoir. Hungry Horse Dam was completed in 1953 on the South Fork of the Flathead River. That means that water released from Hungry Horse Reservoir would flow down until it meets the main Flathead River and would then continue into Flathead Lake. It's an idea that's been on the minds of Montana's congressional delegation.
I was in the Flathead last week talking with folks on the ground, and I've been in touch with state and federal officials, urging them to work together to take action. I've called on the Bureau of Reclamation to take action as soon as they get a plan from the state and the technical management team. And we need the state government to initiate this process. Folks need to work together on this, and we need to move more quickly. Whether you're a small business, recreation outfit, or involved in agriculture, folks in the Flathead simply don't have a moment to waste.
The problem, though, I think, is there were forecasts made on snowpack, on rainfall, that were made earlier this year. And as you know, weather forecasts, the snow forecasts, are never entirely accurate. The BOR has to be more dynamic in making adjustments during the runoff time of the year. When you have more options on water, it's more difficult when you get to the middle of July. As Montanans know, you don't have as many options.
In the Flathead right now, what's happening is marinas are shutting down, people are losing their access to the boats, and it creates a safety issue because hazards of navigation now are out there in places that weren't. So Flathead Lake, let's release the water from Hungry Horse Dam, but let's do it, because the longer you wait, the bigger the problem is.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
So Jill, it's been a beautiful day out here. I mean, we were talking about the low water levels and it is impacting some, but I tell you what, the lake is still gorgeous. I've been looking at the water. I've been wanting to dive in. Jill, it's a great place to hang out. You want to push me in?
I want to push you in. And as we speak, there's a person putting a boat in right now. So it's challenging, but it's doable.
Yes.
Please come here. There's a public beach over there. Polson is really the place to be. Flathead Lake is the place to be
100%.
in the summertime. Yeah, but we're also going to continue to monitor the water level situation for you as we move through the rest of the summer. By the way, it takes an entire team to put on a field broadcast like this, so we really thank you for watching. In fact, Lewis and I will be back in the studio,
unfortunately,
tonight at 10. We'll see you then.